So the entire criminal policy of the left, of the hard left, is that there are certain people who they don't think should be in jail. Therefore, no one should be in jail, apparently. According to the New York Post, Manhattan's new DA has now ordered his prosecutors to stop seeking prison sentences for hordes of criminals and to downgrade felony charges in cases including armed robberies and drug dealing, according to a set of progressive policies made public on Tuesday. In his first memo to staff on Monday, Alvin Bragg said his office, quote, will not seek a carceral sentence, meaning put people in jail, except for homicide and a handful of other cases, including domestic violence felonies, some sex crimes, and public corruption. This rule may be accepted only in extraordinary circumstances based on holistic analysis of the facts, criminal history, victims' input, and any other information available, the memo reads. Assistant DAs must also now keep in mind the impacts of incarceration, including whether it really does increase public safety, potential future barriers to convicts involving housing and employment, the financial cost of prison, and the racial disparities over who gets time. Now, again, we are making rules for the entire society based on a small minority of people who commit criminal acts. That's what we are doing. Okay, by the way, minorities within minorities, because when we talk about, there are too many black men going to prison, that is still a vast minority of black men. The vast majority of black men do not go to prison. This baseline idea that we have to completely reshape how criminal law and institutions of justice are done in this country because you don't like the outcome for a minority of humans who decide to commit crimes is patently crazy. But that is what they are seeking to do, because the idea is that we have created a quote-unquote carceral society, and our carceral society is having downstream effects that shape how people live, and we don't like how those people are living, and therefore we have to get rid of these institutions altogether. Well, we've done that, but guess what replaces it? Chaos. When you get rid of institutions, you create new institutions. Those new institutions either foster chaos or foster tyranny or both. When it comes to criminal law, the left has fostered absolute anarchy, chaos. This is why you've seen mass increases in murder rates across major cities in the United States, because prosecutors have decided that they are not interested in prosecuting people on behalf of the small minority. So just as the institution of marriage must be destroyed because there are some people who don't like it and they don't fit within the box, and the institutions of law must be destroyed because there are some people who don't like the law and commit crimes. And the institution of gender must be destroyed because there are some people who feel uncomfortable. And of course, we have to destroy the institution of schooling as well because there are some people who feel uncomfortable. So, for example, the Chicago public schools have now canceled all classes because the union voted to go virtual. Now, we have been told by the Biden administration that public sector unions are a fulsome good. They are excellent. And we need public sector unions that bargain against the taxpayer. We need this. They're very important. And we need to make sure that these teachers, who are the heroes of the pandemic after all, I mean, soldiering on from their homes and apartments, doing Zoom classes to a bunch of kids who aren't watching them. They are the true heroes. They are truly the heroes. Now, listen, there are some teachers who actually tried to go back into school, and those people are just as heroic as everybody else who went to work. No more, no less. You're not more heroic for having gone into a school than the guy is for having gone into a factory, or even the banker is for having gone into his office today. This silliness, where teachers are more heroic than every other member of the population, is really foolish when it comes to Omicron, when it comes to COVID generally, considering that kids are not getting sick. You're more likely to get sick at your local factory working than you are likely to get sick at your local school working. This has been true throughout the pandemic, by the way. In fact, you remember that last summer, when Delta was beginning to spike, there was all this talk, well, if we reopen schools, teachers are going to get sick. And it turned out that every story that was coming up about teachers dying was from a teacher who'd gotten infected outside of school. And well, now the Chicago Teachers Union, the greatest of all people who are running the Biden administration, by the way, Randy Weingarten is in the White House every other minute. The Chicago Teachers Union voted to teach virtually rather than in the classroom because, of course, these are heroes of the republic. CPS is the third largest school district in the country. They resumed in-person learning on Monday in conditions that union leaders described as unsafe. The union held an emergency meeting on Tuesday. The vote was 73% in favor of the remote work-only job action, the union said on Twitter. Chicago Public Schools described the union vote as, quote, an unfortunate decision. The union said the action will end when the current surge in cases substantially subsides. Okay, so just a quick note. This is an illegal strike. Okay, by law, public sector unions are not allowed to strike. The reason they're not allowed to strike is because they're not striking against an employer. They're striking against the taxpayer. Public sector unions are barred from strikes by law. Doesn't matter. They do it all the time. Okay, but again, the idea is the rules must change. The rules must change because there's a small group of people who are paranoid and being crazy. And so all the rules have to change to restrict students from being able to go to school. We're in a battle for the culture and for our values. Like and subscribe to help keep our videos on the front line of the fight and top of your feed.